Okay. Hello. So I'm Aidan Barbieux. Sorry if I'm a bit scattered. I just gave another talk, which I was practicing before this. Um, I changed the name of this talk because I made a 30-minute talk and I only have 10 minutes. So I'm focusing on one part of it. But this is more of a story than an academic presentation. I'm trying to tell how I got to a project I'm working on right now, coming from Alife and going to something that seems a lot different, but I think is actually really related. And that's artificial life for social coordination. Um, and there's a lot of people I should give credit to because this is a lot of different projects leading up to this. Um, so first, like in the beginning, when I was a kid, I was really interested in the mind and the world, but it seemed like not everyone else was, which was kind of strange. And so I thought, why don't they see this beauty that I see? I feel like a lot of you probably see it because you're in A Life. But it was strange, I was interested in dreams and astronomy and geology, and it seemed like there's this evolution of the world that was really exciting. And it seemed like computers are really good at capturing it in games. So I thought, how can I show this to the world? How can I share this with the world somehow? And it started out just by being really interested in nature, looking out in the world and taking photos and looking at clouds and all that, and just being this dreamer on a rock, right? And that kind of turned into, well, parallel to that was like storytelling, just like trying to explain what I was seeing to the world, like using maps, world building, all of this. And eventually I started programming in high school, creating all these like computational art experiments using processing and all of this. So I really appreciate Jack's work. And doing kind of like a-life experiments. Like this is like the Urey-Miller experiment, trying to synthesize proteins. Um, and along the way, I started uh, dabbling with neuroscience, or just like kind of learning about the brain and working with networks and all that, and VR. And I came across this art project. I was working on cellular automata, Langton's Ant, and it was adding a bunch of more rules to Langton's Ant. And I got this cardioid, and it has like 14 or something. I saw it looks like a brain. Um, and you get these waves propagating across it. And I was like, this is really interesting. Like this is really exciting to me, and it seems like there's some deep connection here that seems really powerful. So I thought, how can I try and like show the mind? I could show nature, but how can I show the mind? I was like, that kind of broke me. I was like, this is hard. This is a really hard problem. I don't see anything out there. I kind of thought naively when I was like, Minecraft is huge, right? And computers are huge. And surely we know everything we need to know about the brain. So why can't we just put a brain in a computer? Like that seems obvious as a 14-year-old, but of course it's not very obvious. So I started studying this a little bit more into like haptic object perception and trying to create interfaces. So I was really interested in like how do we extend the mind in some way. Um, and I was working on this project creating interfaces for reverse engineers. So this project was imagine you have like a giant stack of papers and there's an expert, like a legal expert, who can find all the strange little nuances that connect across this giant space. But you're a novice and you don't have that expert knowledge. So, but you want to solve the same problem. And so this interface, the idea was, can we capture the cognition of the expert and let you follow their trails? And at the same time, I was working on the stuff that I just presented earlier, Coreli, which is using Tai Chi. And this question in my mind was foraging behavior. Um, so it seems like if you want to create life from scratch from cells, you kind of have to put them in an environment where they have to find food and compete with other things. And a lot of the behavior that they adopt, like levee flights and these foraging paths, looks a lot like the behavior I was seeing of experts in these systems. And a lot of the algorithms actually looked the same. It seemed like if I could produce a system that could solve these A-life problems, I could produce a system that could help experts. And that was really exciting. And I thought, well, what happened to have had a bunch of experts creating these paths together? Um, so on the right, you see r/place, which is this great social experiment where you a bunch of people place pixels on a canvas, and they self-organize and create all these wonderful images on it. And on the left, you see a city, of course, people working together. I thought, okay, if I want to create a brain, if I want to like capture a brain in a computer, why start from cells? Why don't I just get people to work together and create a brain out of people? It's the same thing, right? If you think about like scale invariance and all this. So I was like, okay, I just finished master's degree or working on a master's degree then. I thought, I want to solve a problem. I want to actually focus on something. I want to stop just making art. I want to really work on something now. I have all these components here. There's beautiful nature. There are minds that are a part of it. And there's a really big problem in front of all of us, which is we're in a meaning crisis right now. Just think about how much time we spend on our phones, what's happening to the internet right now, what's happening to our connection, our communities, and so on. This is this should be forefront of a lot of our minds, I think. And it was definitely forefront for mine. And I thought, how can I start approaching this using these ideas that I've been working on for a while, and also GPTs, which were really coming out at the time. And so this is the approach that I came up with, and it resulted in the project I'm about to present, which is we need to make sense of things. We need to find a way to communicate with each other and coordinate socially across larger scales by improving the media that we're working with. And it seems like by using effective interfaces, so things that use like our old innate capacities, we can do this maybe. And in Alife terms, maybe bring ourselves towards criticality. So instead of going off into chaos and all separating, and instead of crystallizing and becoming dogmatic, maybe we can all kind of add stuff and grow and develop structures together. And to go back to that child in me, it's like, can we show the beauty of minds in the internet? Because I grew up on the internet, and I think it's beautiful, but it's turning into something that's not really beautiful. And if you were at the talks on Friday, I talked about this, and it's kind of the same slides a little bit, so I apologize if this is repeating myself. But when you think about the space that we're dealing with, like what's under the hood when you think of TikTok or social media, and it's this really, it's that you have this huge structure of media out there that people navigate. Based on how they navigate it, somebody can use that information to make you watch ads and addict you to it. But this structure that we've created is an amazing structure. It has incredible information in it. It's a huge resource for people. And we can fight to use it really well. Because this is incredibly powerful. And I don't think we realize just how powerful this is. And I like thinking of it as like a jungle. And we've created a jungle, and one of the first things that happens in jungles, you get molds. You get things that try and eat you, right? And so that's kind of how I think of advertisement or profit incentives. And I think that we need to start adapting to the space that we're living in now. We can do that by using our superpowers, because humans are really good. Like those experts that were solving those really hard problems, we're using things that humans are really amazing at. And some of those, I mean, there's a bunch, but think about just our bodies and our brains. What can we do? We have an amazing visual system. We have an amazing spatial memory. Think of like the method of loci, remembering like spots, so like berry bushes in a giant forest. Like imagine, like walk through your hometown and just realize how much fidelity there is to that world model inside of you. It's incredible. We can recognize objects incredibly well. Our hands are amazing. Our bodies are amazing for recognizing, for having a social sense, for reading our impressions of each other. We can self-organize incredibly well. And we're not using any of these for social media. Not really. In fact, a lot of these are being hacked by these companies, right? So it's like, why can't we just kind of shift the equation and use them instead? And so I've been thinking about how can we create a structure that uses these affordances. And there's a structure that keeps on showing up everywhere, which kind of talks to that scale invariance, where you have like cells creating societies, or cells creating humans and humans creating societies. Or if you think about like, imagine you're trying to climb a mountain. First you see a big mountain, and you say, I'm going to walk towards the big mountain. And you see a big boulder, and you say, I'm going to walk towards the big boulder. And then you see a handhold on the boulder, and so on and so forth. And you kind of zoom in and out in the structure. And that search structure is actually really powerful, and it's what is behind semantic search. So whenever you use LLM and it has a memory to it, and it's like searching through a bunch of documents via a vector search, it's using a hierarchical navigable small world graph, which in structure looks a lot like the things that we navigate in the same world. So it turns out that we've created something that both LLMs can use and that we can use, which I think is really powerful. So I've been playing around with different ways of turning this into like an interface that we can use to work together and to create a better social media. I only have 2 minutes left, I believe, so I'll zoom through this. But the first was just trying to put it into a spatial map, something that we could explore, something that you can zoom in and out of. And this was kind of the approach, just take the embeddings of a bunch of documents and cluster them and put them into groups like this. Just kind of useful. You can memorize a database pretty quickly. But really, there's this aspect of that missing, which is really you're traveling through that database. You're like at one point, and then you go to the next thing, and you form some opinion about it, and you go to the next thing, and you're developing this like cognitive trail over time. And so this is an approach using just like Apple's freeform. I got some people together and tried to, and LLMs generating some of this, and tried to work together to create or to visualize the paths that we were taking when we were thinking about a problem together socially. And it turns out that these are really good. Like I made this, I don't know, 4 months ago, and I could probably tell you what's in this thing because I memorized the shape of it. Because this is way easier to memorize than a feed of text, right? So those are two kind of approaches, and a third approach is just building on the first, which was also working with like the social media company briefly. Um, I can't really go into this, I'm sorry, but essentially this is taking social media, which is a bunch of people talking to each other with their actual voices, embedding it with LLMs, and then automatically summarizing it with LLMs as well. And so you get these like communities. You can see the communities, you can move around them as you like without an algorithm. And it's pretty easy to quickly find people that are thinking about the same ideas as you in a very like serendipitous way. And this was amazing. I mean, the people I met through this was really surprising and incredible. So I think that we're sitting on a pile of gold right now with the tools that we have. So I think this can go a lot of directions. I want to add more to all of this, add the trails and combine it into something, potentially into a startup or maybe an academic project. I don't know exactly, but I just want to kind of put it out there that all of you have an incredible skill set. And I think that we can really do something outside of just Alife academia. And I think that I just want to say that it's beautiful. So let's work on it. Yeah.